Darkness, it clung to Jeff like a shroud. He wasn't born evil, he was made. A cruel twist of fate, a chemical fire, and the taunting laughter of his tormentors had forged him into something monstrous.
This is my life now, a never-ending cycle of madness and murder.
His bleached white skin, stretched into a permanent grin, was a horrifying mask that hid the torment within. The eyes, wide and staring, had witnessed too much pain, too much darkness. They reflected nothing but the abyss that had swallowed him whole.
Jeff the Killer, they call me. A name whispered in fear, a legend born of blood and darkness.
Jeff moved like a phantom, a whisper of dread in the night. He craved the thrill of the hunt, the fear in his victims' eyes, the fleeting satisfaction of extinguishing their light. Each kill, a gruesome masterpiece, a testament to his broken mind. He embraced the title. It was all he had left. In the dimly lit alleys of Japan, a different kind of fear stalked the night. A whisper of her name sent shivers down spines and made mothers clutch their children closer. Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman.
Am I beautiful?
Her story was a tragedy, a tale of beauty and betrayal. Once she had been a woman of captivating beauty, but her vanity proved to be her downfall. Now, her mutilated face, forever frozen in a grotesque grin, was hidden behind a white surgical mask.
Then die like me.
She wandered the night, a vengeful spirit seeking solace from her pain by inflicting it on others. Her question was always the same. Am I beautiful? A simple inquiry that concealed a deadly intent. To answer no was to invite a swift and brutal end at the hands of her sharp shears. To answer yes was to face a fate arguably worse. Kuchisake Onna would reveal her disfigurement, her question transforming into a demand. Then die like me. The air hung heavy with moisture, a thick fog rolling in from the sea, blanketing the city in an eerie silence. It was the kind of night that whispered of secrets and hidden dangers, the perfect backdrop for a chance encounter that would change everything. Jeff the Killer, drawn by a primal instinct, a hunger for chaos, found himself in a new hunting ground. The city, with its labyrinthine alleys and oppressive atmosphere, both intrigued and excited him. It was a playground of shadows, ripe with potential victims. Unbeknownst to him, Kuchisake Onna was also drawn to the city. Its bustling crowds and anonymous faces provided the perfect cover for her gruesome quest. She roamed the streets, her white mask a stark contrast to the darkness that surrounded her. Fate, it seemed, had a plan for these two harbingers of horror. Their paths, destined to collide, were converging on a night choked by fog and fear. The city, oblivious to the danger lurking within its midst, held its breath. The alleyway was narrow, barely wide enough for two people to pass. The stench of decay hung heavy in the air, a mix of rotting garbage and something far more sinister. It was here, in this forgotten corner of the city, that Jeff and Kuchisake Onna met for the first time. Jeff, his senses heightened, felt a presence before he saw her. A cold shiver ran down his spine, a feeling he hadn't experienced in, well, ever. He stopped, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife concealed beneath his tattered jacket.
Well, what do we have here?
His voice, a gravelly whisper, echoed off the damp brick walls. His eyes, wide and unblinking, settled on the figure standing at the other end of the alley. A woman. Her long black hair cascaded down her back like a silken waterfall. She wore a long white coat that concealed her figure, and her face was obscured by a plain white surgical mask.
Am I beautiful?
Her voice, a haunting melody, seemed to seep into Jeff's bones. The question caught him off guard. No one had ever asked him that before. The tension in the alleyway was palpable. Jeff's grip tightened on his knife as he took a step forward. Kuchisake Onna's eyes glinted with a dangerous light as she reached for her shears. The air crackled with anticipation. Without warning, Jeff lunged, his knife slicing through the air. Kuchisake Onna dodged with a grace that belied her ghostly appearance, her shears flashing in the dim light. The fight had begun, a deadly dance of blades and shadows. Jeff's movements were swift and brutal, each strike aimed to maim or kill, but Kuchisake Onna moved with an otherworldly agility, her shears snapping dangerously close to Jeff's face. The alleyway became a battleground, the sounds of metal clashing and heavy breathing filling the narrow space. As the fight raged on, it became clear that this was not just a battle of physical strength, but of wills. Jeff's eyes burned with a manic intensity, while Kuchisake Onna's gaze held a cold, unyielding determination. In a final, desperate move, Jeff feinted to the left, drawing Kuchisake Ona's attention just long enough to land a glancing blow on her shoulder. She stumbled, her mask slipping slightly to reveal the gruesome scars beneath. But even wounded, Kuchisake Onna was not defeated. With a cry of rage, she surged forward, her shears aiming for Jeff's heart. The two collided in a flurry of motion, their bodies tangled in a deadly embrace. The alleyway was a blur of movement and violence. Jeff and Kuchisake Onna were locked in a brutal struggle, each trying to gain the upper hand. Blood spattered the walls as their weapons clashed. Jeff's strength was matched by Kuchisake Ona's speed and agility. It was a fight to the death, and neither was willing to back down. In a final desperate move, Jeff managed to disarm Kuchisake Onna, his knife poised for the killing blow. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw something that gave him pause. Was it fear? Regret? He hesitated, and in that moment Kuchisake Onna struck, her shears finding their mark. The alleyway fell silent as Jeff crumpled to the ground, his life slipping away. Kuchisake Onna stood over him, victorious but haunted by the encounter. As Jeff's lifeless body lay on the cold, damp ground, a strange stillness settled over the alley. The fog grew thicker, wrapping the scene in an otherworldly shroud. Kuchisake Onna's eyes, which had moments ago been filled with fierce determination, now reflected a haunting sadness. She knelt beside Jeff, her fingers trembling as she reached out to touch his face. The mask she wore slipped further, revealing the full extent of her disfigured mouth. For a brief moment the ghostly visage of Kuchisake Onna softened, her eyes filled with a sorrow that transcended time and space. In the distance, the faint sound of a clock striking midnight echoed through the fog. Kuchisake Onna rose slowly, her shears dripping with blood. She turned and walked away, her form gradually fading into the mist, leaving behind the lifeless body of Jeff the killer. The alleyway returned to its eerie silence, the echoes of their deadly dance lingering in the air. Jeff's eyes remained open, staring unseeingly at the sky. The fog thickened, swallowing the scene in darkness. And so, the legend of Jeff the Killer and Kuchisake Onna was etched into the shadows of the night, a haunting reminder of their fateful encounter. Their spirits, forever intertwined, would roam the foggy streets, a testament to a battle where there were no true victors, only lingering ghosts of a deadly dance. The fog rolled in thicker, and soon, the alleyway was nothing more than a whisper of a memory, a place where shadows danced and legends were born.